Welcome to BreachLock's unified platform. What we are attempting to do with this platform is combine all facets of offensive security that you're relying on BreachLock to do for you, all in one singular login with a single pane of glass. The intent here is to be able to run attack surface management scans or run your public-facing vulnerability scans or even your annual pen tests for compliance all within one spot, make it very user-friendly, and you don't need to manage a whole bunch of vendors or a whole bunch of different SaaS applications. It also gives the ability to share a common data model across all of those different types of offensive security offerings, just to make your life a little bit easier on the practitioner side. So there are a few key themes here in the BreachLock unified platform. You're going to see ASM. That is going to be attack surface management, and this is going to be entirely product-based. So this is a tool for your team to use to run domain discovery scans, data breach scans, as well as some vulnerability scans against different types of assets that we'll cover soon. There is also going to be the penetration testing as a service. So this is the classic third-party pen testing where you are asking us and our ethical hackers to do some sort of manual pen test for you. The reason that it is here in the platform is for you to be able to self-service request and ingest the results in a few different ways. It really just helps make things quicker and more efficient. And then finally, there's going to be adversarial exposure validation. This is our autonomous pen testing / red teaming tool. So first, we're going to start with ASM here. So on this dashboard, we're going to give you common measures and metrics that you would expect out of automated scans. We will give you an overall risk based off of criticality across all of those assets, total asset count, vulnerability count, and then just some other measures and metrics below. Under the PTaaS, we're going to give you an overall risk of all of those manual findings based off of CVSS score, an overview of each pen test category that you've engaged BreachLock to conduct, a count of unpatched vulnerabilities, as well as patched vulnerabilities. How does BreachLock know if these vulnerabilities have been patched? Well, for most standard offerings, we're going to offer you 2 free retests so that we can go through and validate that your patches or your configurations worked. So let's walk through the entire functionality of the platform from A to Z if you are utilizing us for both ASM and for PTaaS. The first step in this journey is going to be figuring out what is out there that's public facing in accordance with your organization. So if I am a bad actor somewhere on the internet and all I know is your company name, what am I able to figure out about you? What does that footprint look like? What technologies do you have out there? Once we've uncovered that information, then we can use it to run automated scans. So the first step is going to be coming down to this run scan console, where we're going to launch that domain discovery scan. This is also where all of the other scan types are going to live. But for now, we need to first figure out what exists out there across the internet. So we're going to click domain discovery. Here I can choose a seed domain that I need to run this investigation on. And I can choose to either run this right now, or I can set this up to run on a schedule, daily, weekly, monthly, or custom timing. What this is doing on the back end is scouring various records like MX records and A records and C names and typo squatting to try and figure out public-facing subdomains and IP addresses. If you set this up to run on a schedule, it can run continuously without your intervention, and then it'll notify you if anything new is exposed. So what happens when that scan has run? Now we're going to give you an attack path view here. You'll see all of those seed domains. You'll see any of those subdomains housing applications. And then you'll see the IP address of the servers hosting those applications. Around these rings, you're going to see vulnerabilities pertaining to the server level and vulnerabilities pertaining to the subdomain level. And this is just to help you assess risk of how things could trickle down to this seed domain. So what's the information that we're getting on the back end? In here, we're going to give you a screenshot of everything that we found that was exposed. So all of those subdomains will give you a screenshot of what that landing page appears to be. We'll also let you see an IP address of the server, any open ports and protocols, technologies in play. So whether there's Cloudflare, maybe running Ruby on Rails, it's an Apache web server, etc. Here we'll let you see TLS and Cipher suites. And then there's some querying and filtering over here on the side. Now, under Asset Discovery View, this is where you get the granularity of seeing each thing that was exposed. So your subdomains, your IP addresses, any URLs that point to APIs, and then just some other various things from within here. So if I click into one, you'd be able to see some more tailored information about the individual host. Now, next is data breach and dark web exposure here. So we are not a DLP tool. We are not trying to reinvent the wheel here. All that we are doing is thinking like an attacker somewhere across the web. I know your organization name, so I'm going to go look at threat intel feeds, public data breach exposures, and see if I can find any credentials or hashes for me to crack. So within this pane, we're going to let you see any users exposed with a password, without a password, or any public dark web exposure across your organization. Here I can click in and see what that password was that was exposed. So whether this was a hash or a password in plain text. And then over here I can see the source of where these came from. Now it's time to start running some of those automated scans. So say we uncovered a handful of subdomains and maybe you didn't know that they exist. A developer stood them up as a testing or a stage environment a couple years ago. There's some technologies associated with it. Well, let's see what risk that actually poses to our organization. So from within here, I can say, I want to name this a specific application, and I wanted to run a web application scan. All of the various scan types that BreachLock supports are web app scans, both authenticated and unauthenticated. We have some network vulnerability scans for public-facing IPs and hosts. We also have API scanning if you upload the API documentation, AI and LLM scanning, mobile application scanning, and cloud security assessments. For now, I'm going to click a web scan, and I want to run an authenticated web scan. Now, this is the asset inventory of everything that the platform currently knows about. Here you'll see that it's auto-discovered. Well, that's because we found it during the domain discovery scan. So now that we know it exists, come in and click a button, and let's run a scan on it. Now, there is also the ability to come down to the asset inventory and upload manual assets in here as well. So maybe you have some cloud-hosted VMs or servers that aren't necessarily tied to your organization by certificate. You could always upload those here in as well. For now, I'm going to say I want to run a web app scan on this. Here I can choose if this is authenticated or unauthenticated. In order to provide credentials, I can come down and expand this, and we support basic authentication, and we also do have a Chrome plugin for recording a login sequence. It'll record credentials and redirects. For this particular application, we'll say that it's basic authentication with username and password. Now here I can choose a scanning profile that I would like to run. By default, it is non-invasive in nature, but if I toggle on invasive, what that's going to do is send more packets at the application. There will be more fuzzing. It'll actually fill in some inputs and some fillable forms, and it can cause some traffic and some tickets on your side. So we advise if this is going to be a production asset, you currently have customers or employees interacting with this web application, we're going to toggle the invasiveness off. It's still going to look for common OWASP top 10, OWASP ASVS level threats. It's just not going to be as invasive in nature. And then here I can choose to run this live right now, or again, I can set this up to run on a schedule, just like every scan from within here. Once I submit that, the scan has run and vulnerabilities have been enumerated. I'm going to come down into the Vulnerabilities tab, and this is going to give you an overview of all vulnerabilities found across all scanning types. So from within here, I can click into any of these, and I can see a description. I can see a recommendation. I'll get some references on how to fix. And over here in the comments, you can actually interact with BreachLock and say, "Yeah, you know what? I think that this maybe should be a low severity finding because I have this in a segmented environment. Here's my data flow diagrams or my network diagrams attached." Or you could just say, "Hey, BreachLock, you gave me this recommendation. We actually just need a little bit more help. Can I get some more tailored recommendation advice here?" Over here in Asset Impacted, you'll be able to see each host affected by the vulnerability, and you'll also be able to see a screenshot of how we detected that individual finding. So our goal here is to provide as many true positives as possible so that your team doesn't need to waste as much time validating false positives and instead can spend that time using it for remediation functions. Now, inside this list of vulnerabilities, we also give you the ability to rescan and retest at the vulnerability level. So say you've gone through and you've fixed a few of these individual vulnerabilities. Let's click rescan. If it's truly been fixed, it's going to get moved over into the patched category. Lastly, here in this pane, we'll also give you the ability to export all of these findings into a CSV so you can manipulate as you need. All of these scans will also produce multiple different types of reports, and we'll cover what those reports are going to look like once we get through the manual pen testing portion. So that's going to bring me to pen testing. From within here, I can schedule BreachLock to conduct a hands-on manual penetration test, and I'm going to click New Pen Test. So let's say this just needs to be my common external network penetration test to adhere with an ISO 27001 or a SOC 2, or maybe even just a customer contract or requirement. Here I can say this is an external network pen test. You'll be able to choose from a product type that you'll have on an SOW. So whereas ASM is all subscription-based unlimited scanning, under PTaaS, these are still very much project-based assessments. 1 credit equals 1 overall project. You let us know how many you need throughout the year. So here I'm going to click an external network pen test, and now I'm greeted with everything that was uncovered during those domain discovery scans again. So in here, I can provide what the scope needs to be. I can also manually add some assets to be put in scope for testing here as well. Or I can say, you know what, I don't want to give you individual hosts. Maybe I just want to give you a subnet, have you run that host discovery, port enumeration, and then do the pen test from there. You can always click skip here in the bottom right, and your assigned project manager is going to reach out for that information. For now, I'm just going to click this. Here I can choose an environment. So whether this is going to be a production environment or maybe a staging or a dev infrastructure environment. And then here is where I get to decide when I want BreachLock to conduct this testing. So this is putting in your preference of timing. We are very good about kicking these things off early. So typically we only need somewhere around 1 business week in order to start testing. You do not need to project us out to a couple months. So let's say that I want BreachLock to kick this off next Friday, and I actually want it to run after hours. I pay for a managed SOC, and I want to verify that my SOC is able to see the types of activities that are happening during a pen test. So in here, I can say after hours or weekends only. Now I can submit, and we've avoided quite a few Zoom calls or email threads to talk about what, when, where, and how we're going to conduct the pen test. And it's just automatically gone into our queue. Here under Pentests, I can see an overview of every project across requested, in progress, and completed phases. Main thing to note on this screen, if a project is currently in progress, we do have a pause button built in. So this is going to lock out the pen tester, and then we'll wait for your okay in order to finish up with that project. Now, once that project has reached its ETA, all of the results are going to be visible. The only caveat to that is if we find a critical severity finding during the testing window, we'll let you know immediately so that you can meet your critical SLAs. Now, ingesting the results from PTaaS looks largely the same as ASM. In here, I can see an overall view of all pen test findings across all projects. I can click into any of these findings, see description, see recommendation, references. I can also ask BreachLocks for some more tailored recommendations or extra assistance here. And then we will give you that entire kill chain. So whether that was one step to exploit or find the vulnerability, or it was multiple steps. These obviously will make their way onto the report as well. Now, for manual findings here under PTaaS, we don't give you the ability to do a automated rescan on all of them. However, we do give you those free manual retests for us to come through, put hands on keyboard again, and validate that your fixes have worked. You can book those retests through new Pentest. If we have deemed those vulnerabilities to no longer exist, they're going to get moved into the patched category. So that's it on the ASM and on the PTaaS front. Next, we're going to talk about reporting. So now here in the reporting pane, we will produce a detailed technical report for each scan or each PTaaS project. We're also going to give you an executive summary report. And you can browse all of these here in the browser. You can also download them as a PDF. And don't forget that you have the ability to export as a CSV. We'll also give you the ability to filter hosts that you want to report on. So if I come up to generate, and I'm going to say external network for audit. I currently have my high trust audit coming up, and I had 100 IPs in scope for my external network pen test. However, the auditor only needs to see a sample size of 15 of those IP addresses to prove implementation of a pen testing program. From within here, I can choose a pen test that has occurred in the past, and I can actually choose individual hosts that I would like to report on. So this could be useful for a couple different reasons. Either we can reduce the amount of hosts that we put onto a report so that we're not reporting too much. Or maybe you have various locations, all with their own IP addresses that were encompassed within one project, and you want to split a report up into 5 different locations. Feel free to use this generate report however you deem fit. A couple more things here. We also offer some integrations. So for your ticketing systems, whether that be a Jira Cloud, ServiceNow, Azure DevOps, GitHub, you can connect an integration with your current ticketing. What that'll do is for any ASM or for any PTaaS findings, it'll generate an individual ticket or an individual incident for each finding for your teams to be able to track the same way you track your hotfixes, your bugs, or whatever else you're doing inside ticketing systems. Now, once you close that ticket out in a Jira or an ADO, etc., it will not reflect on the BreachLock platform. These are unidirectional, and the reason that we've done that is so that we can go through and validate either through the automated rescans or through our manual retests that those tickets have been closed and that those vulnerabilities are no longer present in your systems. Last piece is just some housekeeping. So we'll give you an overview of each SOW or subscription that you have with BreachLock. Some of our customers know everything that they need all throughout 12 months. Some customers want to do ad hoc testing throughout the year as they have a backlog of web applications that need to be tested. So we'll let you see an overview of every contract and SOW you have with us, how much of a thing has been purchased, how much has currently been consumed, and if you stick with us for a year or two, we'll also let you see any expired subscriptions so that you can see last year's scope, what you purchased from us last year, so we don't need to reinvent the wheel every time. But overall, that is BreachLock's unified platform here. Again, our aim is to combine automated vulnerability scanning, attack surface management, and manual pen testing all in one platform to make your life easier, but to truly assess risk and let everything talk together. I appreciate your time today, and please reach out to us if you'd ever like to see some live demos or try out a proof of concept. Thank you.